Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're going to be fixing these yellow hazy headlights on this Audi S4. Stay tuned. So it's fairly common after 10 or so years, plastic headlights, they just end up getting haze on them and yellowing up, and they're kind of ugly. They can be pretty unsightly. So it's actually really quite easy to fix them up. All you need is some sandpaper, some masking tape, some polishing compound. Easy as that. So here are the headlights we're going to be working on today. These aren't the worst example I've ever seen, but they can definitely use some clearing up. You can see it's quite foggy, and if you feel this, it's pretty rough on the outside. So that just means we can fix this up. So it's actually quite simple. What we're going to do first is just use some masking tape, mask off around the headlight. The only reason we're doing this is because when we're sanding, we want to make sure that we're not damaging the paint. And it could be pretty easy to do, you slip. Anyway, we're just going to mask it off, make sure we're safe. And then we're going to go and sand it off. So 1000 grit, 2000, and then 3000 grit sandpaper. So once we got all the major scratches out with the 3000 grit sandpaper, we're going to use this attachment here. It goes on no drill. Essentially it's a, use your polishing and your compound on your headlights, and that'll make them just shine. So the last step, after you've polished them up and they look just beautiful, you just got to make sure you coat it. So I got some Meguiar's headlight coating here. Essentially all this does is it provides a UV protection for the headlight, so that when you go out there and the sun's rays hit it, it's not going to yellow up right away. Okay, so like I said, the first step is to mask it off with some painter's tape. So we're just going to go around the edges here real quick. Really don't need to be perfect. You're just protecting the paint. Okay, so the second step, you take some 1000 grit sandpaper. I like to wrap it up in a foam pad or something just to make it easier to work with. Make sure it's some wet sandpaper that's compatible with a little bit of water. So we're going to wet sand these headlights. That just reduces the amount of friction and cleans them up real nice. So I'm going to take our soapy water solution, go ahead and spray them on the headlights, get them all nice and lubricated. And then what you're going to want to do with your 1000 grit sandpaper is you're going to want to work these headlights in one single direction. So with 1000, I'm going to work it horizontally. Once I go to the 2000, we're going to work it vertically. And then with the 3000, we're going to go diagonally.
I think the girls with their nails done now.
Alright guys, so this is kind of what the headlight looks like after you sanded it with 1000 grit. So it's pretty smooth. You don't feel any ridges or any roughness on it. But there's a lot of scratches, and it's really, really hazy now. Essentially all the haze is just the scratches that you put in with the 1000 grit. So next step is you just take some 2000 grit, and like I said, you go over it in a vertical fashion instead of horizontal. And again, make sure you use some water to lubricate it, and to make sure your sandpaper lasts more than 10 seconds, right? Or else, all the junk is going to get caught up in the 2000 grit sandpaper. So here we go.
I think the girls with their nails done now. Girls with their nails done. I think the girls with their nails done.
Okay, so here's the final product after step 2, which is the 2000 grit sandpaper. Now you can see a lot of the haze has gone away already, but the next step is really going to help that too. So now we're even going to go finer, 3000 grit sandpaper, and we're going to go ahead and wet sand it again, and then it should be very close to the final product. After that, we need to just polish it up and make sure that it's just completely clear. And again, on stage 3, we're going to sand diagonally, right? So what you're doing by changing the direction is really just shaving down the peaks that your previous sandpaper left, right? So if you think about it, sandpaper is essentially like rocks, and then space, and then another rock, essentially, oversimplifying it. But this is going to sand those down so they're all the same level, and you're not missing any of those peaks and valleys. So. Okay, so here you go. The sanding is now done. This is what it looks like after a 3000 grit sandpaper. You can feel it's extremely smooth to the touch. So this is as good as it's gonna get if you end up sanding it. But we're gonna take it one step further, and we're gonna go ahead and compound and polish this thing. So this is gonna make it shine like the paint on your bodywork if you were to do like a paint correction. And then all we gotta do after that is seal it up, and it's gonna give it that wet look too. It's gonna look great. All right, guys, so look at that. It's so much better already. I'm gonna do it again. You can see there's a couple spots here and there where it's still a little hazy, so we're gonna give it a second coat. But this looks fantastic. Okay guys, so we're all done. We compounded, we polished. It looks great. Now, the last thing we gotta do is we gotta make sure we seal it. So I bought this headlight coating. Essentially it's a spray on, essentially spray paint that's UV protection for the headlights. So essentially what we're gonna do is we're gonna mask it off. You'll see I replaced the masking tape. You know, I didn't want any spots where I'd get overspray or anything like that. But before we start that, we need to make sure that all the compound and the polish is off. So essentially what you do is you go to the dollar store, you buy some isopropyl, some rubbing alcohol. You just take a little bit on your rag here and just quickly wipe down your headlight. Now isopropyl alcohol essentially will remove all of the polish that's left over, and will let you just spray directly onto the headlight. So that's what you want. You want this coating to stick really well. There's the coating, shook it up really well. I'm gonna use just a yard waste bag or something just to block off where I'm spraying, just to prevent even more overspray. But essentially all you have to do is you put 2 coats of this stuff. You put one medium coat, and then the last coat's gonna be a little more wet. About 3 minutes in between, it says. So it's the first time I use this product, so we'll see if it keeps your headlights clear. Alright guys, so there you have it. I'd set aside probably an hour and a half for the job for both headlights, but all in all it really wasn't a hard job, and it makes a hell of a difference on the look of your car. Make sure you like and subscribe to stay up to date with all the content that MG Motorsports has to offer.